If you're thinking that the only path to retirement is working harder, saving more, and investing in the stock market till you hit 65, I invite you to the 10x Your Financial Freedom through real estate. I'm going to be going over my proven framework that I used to get to financial freedom at 41 in a few short years while working full time and raising young kids. And I know that you can do it even in the current market with interest rates the way they are, and even through a recession, because hundreds of our students, many of whom are busy physicians just like you, have used the same time tested strategies to acquire over $200 million of real estate. And on day 2 of the event, you get to meet some of them and hear their stories, how they got to 6 figures in passive income while saving hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes in this market. So if you're tired, burnt out, and ready to take back control of your time and income, if you're struggling with getting your first long-term, short-term rental, or investing in syndications and you don't want to learn from costly mistakes, or you feel like you don't have the time or money to get started, or if you're ready to go from a handful of rentals to 10xing your cash flow, we will be building your personalized recession-resilient real estate portfolio so you can accelerate financial freedom while paying less in taxes. So get ready to go from working harder to working smarter. Register for the event at generationalwealthmd.com/event in lowercase, and I'll see you soon. Hey guys, welcome back to episode 2 of this podcast series. Today we're going to be talking about 4 hidden tax strategies to slash your taxes legally. And so while many physicians are still paying multiple 6 figures in taxes, leaving them with little to no capital to invest, there are so many others who are sheltering most of their income from taxes, and their cash flow exceeds clinical income, right? They're strategically building alternate streams of income and their freedom. And so in this episode, I'm super excited to deep dive into the 4 most impactful and little known strategies that high income earners use to slash the tax bill, how you can stack these strategies to supercharge your wealth building, and how others are sheltering over $800,000 of W-2 income from taxes each year legally using these same strategies while building cash flowing portfolios that make work optional. Okay, I will also be going over pitfalls in each of these strategies, so stay tuned. Welcome to Generational Wealth MD's podcast on financial freedom through investing in real estate. My name is Param. I'm a mom, radiologist, real estate investor, and mentor to others looking to start or scale their real estate portfolios. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with inspiration, strategies, and insight so that you can stop trading your time for money and live life on your terms. If you love the episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to start off by including strategies that work for people who want to be active in their real estate portfolios or willing to do that and don't have the time to do it, but also including strategies that work for those of you who really don't have the time and you want to stay pretty passive in your portfolios, right? So we're going to spread it across the spectrum so it works for everyone. And I will also include cautionary tales, right? So with each of these strategies, what you should be looking out for as you're trying to implement it. Okay, strategy number 1. This is similar to what we talked about in episode 1. This is the short-term rental strategy. You will have some people call it the loophole. And the reason is because this tax strategy works even if you work full-time. You can do this with as little as 10% down on a property. And with 100% bonus depreciation back, you can use, when you meet the criteria, you can use all of the losses from this strategy against your earned income, which is amazing. So you can work full time and you can still use this against your W-2 income, which is why it's super powerful. Which is why within our program, I would say more than half the students who join the program want to do short-term rentals, right? It is such a powerful strategy on multiple levels. And so let's take a look at an example. Now, if you have $1 million property, okay, so people always ask me, Param, what do the numbers look like? What does this actually translate to? So I'll give you some good rules of thumb. Now, this is going to differ depending on the state you invest in, depending on the property type. But as a general good rule of thumb is if you have a property worth $1 million, now remember, you probably only need $100,000 to get started, because about $100,000, right? Because you could do a 10% down second home loan, right, for short-term rentals. And that is a valid strategy that a lot of us in the community like to tap into. With $100,000 down, you could get up to $300,000 to $400,000 in losses that if you use the right strategies and you meet certain criteria, you can use, up to $400,000 in losses against your W-2 or 1099 income, against earned income, right? That's why the strategy is super powerful. This is how students can acquire 2 short-term rentals and shelter up to $800,000 of clinical income from taxes in 1 year. Okay. Now, what do you need to look out for? Like I promised you, I would give you the things that you need to look out for, pitfalls, right? And so the first thing is that you want to make sure you're audit proofing yourself. So you really need to meet criteria to be able to buy a short-term rental for, and you could do this with a $500,000 property, right? I'm just giving you an example of $1 million property so the numbers make sense for you. But this is how you can buy something for 500K and get up to $200,000 in losses, in the year that you acquire the property and use it against your W-2 income. But you will need to hit material participation. Now, material participation means you need to meet 1 out of 7 criteria. The easiest one to hit is usually about 100 hours that you spend on the property in activities that qualify and more than anybody else, right? And so those are pretty stringent criteria, but very easy to hit. Every year we have students who join the program, say in September, acquire property in October, and by the end of December, they've hit material participation, they've placed the property in service, they've had 2 or 3 bookings, and they're able to go in within a few months and when they file their taxes for that year, use those losses against their W-2 income and get a huge refund, right? Now, that's the beauty of this strategy, but make sure you're audit proofing yourself and you're hitting the criteria for material participation legally and audit proofing yourself, right? Now, the other pitfall is that you really need to understand how to buy a profitable short-term rental and how to manage it, right? This is not 2021 where everybody ran a short-term rental and it worked really well. You want to find properties that are profitable even without factoring in the tax savings day one. And then you need to know how to manage your property. Sometimes our students hand it over to a property manager in the future, but at least for a little bit, and even to know what to monitor in terms of KPIs, metrics to keep an eye on, you want to make sure that your property is listed and its listing is optimized, pricing is optimized so that you are maximizing revenue and not leaving any money on the table, right? So finding and managing a property is something you want to be intentional about. This is what we deep dive into during our 3-day live event, 10x your financial freedom in August. And so if you haven't signed up, that is generationalwealthmd.com/event in lowercase. It's free, it's virtual. You have literally no reason why you shouldn't be part of it. And it will teach you how to buy a profitable short-term rental and manage it in under 2 hours a week, because we don't want you to create another job, right? So those are the things you want to look out for. And those are the resources to support you. Okay. Strategy number 2, real estate professional status. So what is that? Now, real estate professional status is a way for you to take huge losses from depreciation in the year of acquisition or in the future for midterm rentals, long-term rentals, multifamily. So this doesn't restrict you to a short-term rental, but you can't do this when you're working full-time. You can do this when you work part-time, right? Because you need to meet certain criteria. The criteria for real estate professional status is that you need to spend at least 750 hours in the calendar year where you're implementing the strategy on real estate in qualified activities, and more time. There's not just that 750-hour criteria, and more time in real estate than any other income producing activity, which is kind of hard to meet and hard to audit proof yourself if you're working more than 3 days a week, right? You also need to hit material participation to have the strategy work, but the barrier is bigger for hitting real estate professional status. And so that's what we want to highlight over here. Now, if you have a spouse who's a stay-at-home spouse who works part-time or works in one of the 7 real estate trades, they could be an agent, a contractor, property manager, then they could qualify as a real estate professional. And because if you are married filing jointly, you can use the strategy to shelter your clinical income, your W-2 income, your earned income from taxes, right? So 2 options, either you're part-time or you're a stay-at-home spouse, or you have a spouse who qualifies, and you can use this against any real estate, commercial properties, long-term rentals, midterm rentals, but you need to meet those stringent criteria. Now, Let me give you an example. So Richard is one of our students within CGF, where, like I mentioned this in the previous episode, he had been investing in real estate for a decade, like me, without really being tax efficient. When he joined the program and he learned about all the tax strategies, he and his wife was able to meet criteria for real estate professional status, right? Because she worked part-time. So she was the person who took on a lot of the real estate related work. She met criteria and they grew together. Now they syndicate. Same thing with Vanessa, another one of our students in the one-on-one program. She was a stay-at-home mom, a radiologist, but a stay-at-home mom, and her spouse worked as an interventionalist. And she was able to qualify as a real estate professional. They scaled their portfolio to over 30 doors, including a multifamily property. And when they used the strategy, they had huge tax savings. It is almost like a big part of that down payment that they put in for the property was paid for by the government, right? So that's how beautiful this strategy can be. I qualify as a real estate professional now at this point, given that I don't work in clinical medicine anymore. And even when I was working a day a week in clinical medicine, I qualified as a real estate professional. And so those are a few examples of how high income earners are using the strategy to legally reduce their taxes. Again, caution, what do you look out for when you try to qualify for this strategy? Over here, again, timing is critical, right? And so if you're someone, so sometimes we use these strategies strategically. So you may work the first half of the year and then you don't work the second half of the year. You log your hours, you make sure that's one way to make sure you can meet the criteria, even if you are single or you're trying to hit this criteria without your partner being looped into the process. So timing is critical. You want to audit proof yourself. You want to make sure that the 750 hours you use are, qualified activities that you can use to qualify as a real estate professional. And you also want to make sure that you have logs for the time that you've spent in any other income producing activity, right? The onus is on you. Now, a lot of our students, and I've done this too, you can really do a rehab, this allows you to spend more time on a property. You are qualifying for the tax strategy and the huge tax savings, but you're also increasing your property's value, increasing your cash flow, multiple ways in which you're boosting returns. And so, like I said before, if you really want to learn these strategies and not make any costly mistakes, learn from other people's experience, join our 3-day event, generationalwealthmd.com/event in lowercase. It's free and it's virtual, and it walks you through every step of the process so you don't make the mistakes that I've made, and you learn from, you learn a proven framework to do this over and over again that's repeatable, that is plug and play, that eliminates the need for you to go and figure this out on your own.
If you're interested in learning how to invest in long-term and short-term rentals the right way, so you can accelerate to financial independence with the support of mentorship, community, and vetted investor agents in strong markets across the country, then get on the waitlist for the next cohort of creating generational freedom at generationalwealthmd.com/waitlist in lowercase. You don't have to learn from decades of costly mistakes by yourself. The program is only open for enrollment in the spring and fall each year. In the last 6 months alone, our members have acquired over $60 million of real estate, and more importantly, they're living life and practicing medicine on their terms. You don't have to do it alone.
Okay, strategy number 3 is medical office buildings. This is the self-rental rule. And just to give you an example, a lot of physicians, you have your own practice. You may own your own practice building. This is what a lot of our students like Samana do, where she was one of our one-on-one students, and she had a practice that she owned in a separate LLC, and she had her, her business, her clinical practice in another LLC. In the cautionary tale here is that you want to be working with a really savvy real estate CPA, and in the year of acquisition, if you group your practice with the building, then you are able to depreciate the building that you own, your medical office building, and take those large losses against your earned income from the practice, right? This is how she was able to, she stacked on a few strategies, but in 1 year, she was able to shelter $800,000 of clinical income from taxes, right? This is super powerful. And so that's what she was able to do. That's the power of being able to use this strategy, especially for physicians or business owners who own the building and the business, right? And so you can group it and you can use these tax savings. Now, if you are looking for a real estate savvy CPA, because a lot of people, now again, a lot of these things are time sensitive. You want the grouping to happen in the year of acquisition, right? And so if you're looking for a real estate savvy CPA, fill out our form at generationalwealthmd.com/CPA in lowercase, and we'll connect you to our vetted CPAs that we work with, including my CPA. But this is the third strategy that a lot of high income earners use to reduce their taxes legally and really boost their returns and supercharge their wealth strategy, right? So don't take that lightly. Now, strategy number 4 is for those of you who feel like, you don't have a short-term rental, you don't have a spouse, or you don't qualify for as a real estate professional, and you don't own your own practice, you're an employee. This is for those of you who want to stay passive and still see how you can strategize around bonus depreciation. So let's talk about that, right? So I want to highlight one point, right? All income, all cash flow from leveraged real estate should be tax-free because of depreciation, right? And so I say leveraged real estate because when a lot of our members, when they come into our community, we realize that if you come from a culture where debt is viewed differently, then you may have a lot of properties that you paid for in cash. And what that does is that then your returns are lower overall. And we talk more about this during the 3-day event, but you also are becoming tax inefficient because when you have a property where you're buying it all cash, now you have positive cash flow that is not, balanced off by depreciation, and you're paying marginal taxes similar to what you would with earned income on that passive cash flow from that portfolio, right? But if you are strategizing it right and you have leveraged real estate, so you have a loan, you have 25% down in each of your properties, then all of that income from your real estate, be that syndications, be that long-term rentals, multifamily, commercial properties, midterm rentals, right? Now, all of that, midterm rentals are a different ballgame because you can have high cash flow, which can exceed what depreciation gives you, right? But all of that income should be tax-free in leveraged long-term rentals and syndications, right? And so if you have a portfolio where you have 6 figures in cash flow coming from that portfolio in real estate, right? Then it could be $100,000. All of that is tax-free because of depreciation, right? So you are still gaining, right? And you're building alternate streams of income that are tax efficient. Now, so that's point number 1. But let's talk about how you can stack and supercharge the strategy further, right? Now, suppose you are someone who invests in syndications. Now, what is a syndication? For those of you who are unfamiliar with that terminology or haven't invested in syndications, this is for the investor who says, hey, I want to be super passive in my portfolio. They don't have a lot of time. And yes, I could go buy long-term rentals or commercial property, but I want to be even more passive. My time is very important to me. I want to invest with others. And so I want to be a passive partner. I'm willing to allow others to manage the property actively. This is where we have syndications where you have operating partners called general partners, and the passive partners who are called limited partners, where they do due diligence, they invest in the property, and then they get mailbox money, right? This is we have GW Capital is our private equity fund that we created primarily to help our community invest passively in real estate, where we bring vetted deals to the community, and our investors stay super passive in the deals. And if you want to get on our priority investor list and get notified about upcoming opportunities before the rest of the community, go to gwcapital.com, capital with an A, and get on our priority investor list. But when you invest in a syndication, what you can bonus depreciate. We always bonus depreciate the building in a syndication, and you can even do this with your long-term rentals, right? So if you have syndications and you have long-term rentals, and no matter what, your cash flow is tax-free because of depreciation. But if you want to start supercharging the strategy, then with syndications, we always bonus depreciate, but you can even bonus depreciate your long-term rentals. Now, you want to be very, very strategic about the timing of when you are bonus depreciating a long-term rental, because the year that you bonus depreciate it, you lock those losses in as passive losses. And in a future year, if you are qualifying as a real estate professional, you cannot convert those losses into active losses, right? So this is the watch out for this over here in this strategy. In strategy number 4, make sure you're intentional about the timing. But if you bonus depreciate your long-term rentals and with syndications, like if you go into a syndication and you put in $100,000 into that deal and invest passively as a passive investor, you could, in year 1, with 100% of bonus depreciation being back, get up to 70,000 in passive losses. Okay, so now you have 70,000 in passive losses. You can now use this against any other passive income right now. So if you have short-term rentals, in the first year, you go in and you bonus depreciate it, you materially participate, you take those losses against your W-2 income, right? In year 2, you likely aren't hitting material participation. So now that property still generates high cash flow, because short-term rentals do, if you buy them right and you manage them right. Now that passive income that you get exceeds depreciation, but you still get depreciation in year 2 going forward, but it's less than year 1 because you bonused it and you took the bulk of it up front. But now you have passive income that you're paying taxes on, right, at your marginal tax bracket, year 2 of a short-term rental. So you can take losses from syndications that are where we bonus depreciate, or you can bonus depreciate your long-term rentals to offset passive income that your short-term rentals are throwing out that you would be paying taxes on at your marginal tax bracket. You can use those losses from your syndications and bonus and your long-term rentals to offset passive income you may have from any unleveraged long-term rentals, because they will be throwing out positive cash flow. You can also use those losses against any business that you are passive in, right? So if you have ownership interest in a surgical center, endoscopy center, dialysis center, right, transfusion center, and you are passive in it, you're getting income from those, you've invested in them, but you're getting passive income from those businesses, then you can use your syndication losses, your long-term rentals, that if you bonus depreciate them, you get massive losses. You can use them against any form of passive income that you have. Now, you want to be intentional about the timing of this. So this is where you strategize with your tax professional to make sure you are strategically bonus depreciating your long-term rentals, right? But you can use this against any other form of passive income. That could be passive income from a short-term rental in year 2, from a long-term rentals that are unleveraged, or from a business that you are passive in. Now, the wealthy, what they do is that they value their time. So they will invest passively in deals, get passive losses from syndications, and then they will go and invest passively in businesses. So they're growing their passive income, in that passive income bucket is growing, but they have what are called your pigs and pals, right? Passive income generators. That income is offset by their passive activity losses that are generated from passive investments, right? So syndication losses against a passive business that you are investing in and getting passive income from. So this is, again, a super effective strategy that a lot of wealthy people use. And I want you to start thinking about it, right? So think about it. Think about passive businesses that you can invest in. Get on our priority investor list. Start learning about syndications. Another tool that I want to offer to you, if you're thinking about syndications, is a guide. If you go to gwcapital.com/guide in lowercase, that is a checklist. That is a quick focused read, 90 minutes, where you can go from not knowing anything about investing in real estate to knowing how to vet syndications, understand the market, understand a deal, know what the numbers mean, and you actually have a due diligence checklist over there. Okay, that's a labor of love I'm giving you. So use it. That's for you. We will talk about syndications also during the 3-day event. And so if you're joining that, you will learn more about all of these powerful strategies. But before we wrap it up, talk about stacking, right? How can you stack these strategies to really supercharge your wealth strategy? This is something we hit upon before, but I want to reinforce it. So year 1, if you get a short-term rental that you are materially participating in, and you are, say it's a $500,000 property, you are qualifying for the short-term rental strategy. Now you have about $200,000 of losses that you can use against your W-2 income. You can get up to $100,000 tax refund, right? With this, and that's awesome. Now you've got the tax refund, but in year two, now your short-term rental, this is what a lot of our students do, right? Your short-term rental is now generating a significant amount of passive income, right, in year two that you will be paying taxes on at your marginal tax bracket. So now you go and start investing in some syndications. You use the passive losses from the syndications against the passive income from your short-term rentals. So you can shelter, say, $50,000 of your short-term rental passive income from taxes by investing in syndications, right? So you're stacking on over there. Now, another way, because if you know me, I leave you with a lot of strategy. Another way is, and if you don't understand some of this, remember, we have people in the community who are beginning, and we have people who are seasoned real estate investors. So I want this to be valuable to everyone. So the strategies I share are across the board strategies that all of you can use. But on the back end, right, as you're exiting your syndications, as you're exiting your deals, uh, when you have these passive losses in your passive bucket, right, from syndications, from your, from your long-term rentals or your commercial properties where you're bonus depreciating them, again, timing is important. So I really want you to talk to your tax strategist before making these decisions, because everyone, this is a personalized, it's not a one size fits all solution. But what I want you to think about is the back end, because sometimes you may be able to do, especially with 100% bonus depreciation, what is called a lazy 1031, where you don't have to use a traditional 1031, where you're bound by time constraints to defer your taxes, and you don't have to pay capital gains or depreciation recapture if you're able to use your banked passive losses from syndications or from long-term rentals, and you're grouping your properties together, right? And so if this is complex, just remember that you can use your losses on the back end against capital gains and depreciation recapture to simplify your exit strategies. And so there are multiple ways to stack these strategies. Okay, so I hope this inspires you. This gives you expands your perspective and helps you see that while you're sheltering multiple six figures of your active income from taxes, and you can do this every single year, you are also in a position, you're doing this with strategies that also help you generate multiple six figures of tax-free passive income that can make work optional, right? This is a powerful strategy for true freedom. And I invite you again to join us during our 3-day event, generationalwealthmd.com/event in lowercase. It is free, it's virtual. We will share stories of physicians just like you who are doing this. We will share strategies, a proven framework that you can use if you're starting, you can use if you're scaling. We will deep dive into all of that, right? And so I think this would be super valuable for you. And again, if you are someone who has no real estate experience and you don't even know what short-term rentals are and you still want to be tax efficient, then join us for the 3rd episode of this 3-part series where we will talk about, and I really wanted to do this because I know many of you may be listening to this and go, okay, but what is my next step? And so the next episode is going to be about the 3 steps that anyone can take to reduce their tax burden before the end of the year. I'm super psyched. I will see you there.